All right, welcome back. I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. Been a wild, in the news cycle, right? Just wild in the news cycle. In the markets. First of all, not financial advice. Consult your licensed financial advisor. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Could be wrong. I was actually wrong this past month. And do your own due diligence. Do not invest in anything you're not willing to lose or lose sleep over. So I thought the market was going to dump after this last FOMC where they raised interest rates 75 basis points, but it didn't. It just rallied on hopes that it's peak inflation. And today we had CPI numbers come out, inflation numbers. Inflation's at 8.5%. It came down a little bit from like 9.3 or 9.1. I forgot. It doesn't matter. What else? Well, VIX dumped. I lost a lot of money on that. Um, that was a bad trade. You're not gonna win them all. I did. I doubled down yesterday, so it's not looking good for me. But I'm holding on barely. Gold popped to 1800. It fell all the way down to 1681. S&P, Dow Jones, Nasdaq, all the growth stocks and FANG stocks and BS is up massively. The dollar is still above 100 handle. It's at 105. I'll talk about bonds. So that is looking interesting. Here's the global indexes. They're all up. Crypto. Corn is up at 24,000 as of now. Today's Thursday. 2000 UTC. Ethereum's up at 1800. Hex popped. It hit 6 cents, which, in the private group, I pretty much, I didn't call the bottom, but at around 3.6 cents, I'm like, I've got a buy signal. Is that going to be the bottom? Or that's close enough to be a bottom call. All right, guys. I think so. But, we're going to get another pullback, possibly, maybe. Anyways, I posted on Twitter and all my Telegram chats a chart. If you want to see it, go to my Twitter. We do have it's an Adam and Eve. And then also on top of that, so here, I'll draw it. Adam, Eve. So it's like a V and then like a cup. And then if you draw a line across here with all this price action, it's also a cup and handle. This is a giant bottoming pattern. All right. So, a nice rally up to 7 cents. And then I'm assuming some sort of correction, a retest, and then it's off to the races. I'm hoping we'll get some good news in about 2 months, something like that. All right. Gold, silver. I'll talk about that. Oil. Oil hit my blue line. It bottomed on my blue line. Perfect. I believe I called that in the private group. Can oil come back down? Can everything come back down? Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Well, let's just talk about it. Here's the bond market. The 2-year, the yield curve is inverted, guys. It's completely inverted. So the bond market is saying recession, screaming recession. The economy is in a recession. It's just that a lot of people have jobs right now. But again, if you account inflation, even if it's at like 8.5% CPI, if you calculate it like they used to, it's still at 17% year over year. That means everyone got like a 17 to 20% pay cut. So now people are just working more jobs to get by. And they're still not counting all the people who aren't even looking for jobs. And Schiff does like the best analysis of that if you want to hear all of that data. What else? Let's talk about the milkshake theory. This is like macro. I'm just gonna bounce around, give you guys a bunch of what's going on, what everyone's talking about. The dollar milkshake theory thing. Can the dollar fall back down to 100 a handle as this market rallies for maybe a week or two more? I don't know. Yeah, and then it'll probably shoot back up. Does that mean inflation in the real world is going to come down? Utilities, gas, prices, all of that, and food. No, it's just the dollar versus other fiat currencies around the world, and the dollar is still the cleanest shirt, or the cleanest shirt in the uh, basket of dirty clothes, right? And the U.S. will suck up capital temporarily as the third world and second world start collapsing, as they already are. Like we see it all over the place, right? We got well, there's just a bunch of countries right now that are really falling apart, and all over the place, that are in the third and second world. Also, on top of that, we got Eastern Europe conflict. Europe looks really bad. So the theory is, I believe that the way they're gonna win that conflict, the Ruskies, is probably they're gonna just stop exporting oil. And Saudis joined BRICS. Iran did as well, which is Brazil, Russia, Iran, China, and what is the S? I'm not sure. Is this Saudi? I Maybe it's Syria. I don't know. Um, it doesn't matter. Like, more countries are joining it, and they're like that destroys the petrodollar, or what's left of it. Meanwhile, we've domestically shut off our domestic production and exploration at the worst possible time in human history. So whoever wins and writes the history books are gonna write about that. So what can they do? The Ruskies? Well, they could stop exporting, and the Saudis can't export anymore. They've already pretty much said that. But that doesn't mean that they're not gonna make as much money. So if oil doubles in price because there's less supply in the market, they make the same amount of money. They're just exporting less. So it doesn't hurt them technically. Who does it hurt? Well, the people they're technically at war with, um, which would be like UN and the US, right? And they are. Like, come on, we're like every day we're sending billions to Ukraine. Um, Meanwhile, China is threatening the U.S. and essentially preparing. They're literally preparing to take Taiwan. They're doing drills in their oceans. They've got tanks being brought to the coast. I mean, the writing's on the wall. I don't know. Like, I don't even want to talk about what Pelosi was doing. Like, it's probably just, who knows? Probably looking at her investments. It doesn't matter. At this point, it's like we are in the fourth turning. It's happening. Most people are in denial. They're just pissed off because their cost of living is high. I was just at the grocery store again. I literally picked up a loaf of bread. I could palm it in my hand. It's either I'm turning into a giant or the food's getting smaller and smaller. At some point, it's ridiculous, right? Um, and the prices are up. So, yeah, I I look at other people's carts. Some people aren't even walking in with carts anymore. They're just walking in with bags because they already know they can't fill a cart. You know what's funny? They're gonna have to do something with all these shopping carts. The regular size shopping cart. No one can fill it anymore unless they have those EBT cards or whatever. So they're gonna have to make those smaller because it just shows people how bad it is. It, like, no one's filling their carts. It's like they're walking around with like the bottom of the cart half or one third filled. It's sad, but people should pay attention and give a shit more. But they won't. They'll just keep them. They'll just keep their heads in the sand till they're really struggling. Uh, So again, I always promote self sufficiency. Get some chickens, do something, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. But from economic standpoint, it looks bad. Why? Well, while they're taunting great jobs growth, which is really just people getting more part time jobs, it gives a false sense of confidence, which means that they might. Well, for one, it means they're going to keep raising rates, or they have no excuse to not raise rates. The excuse, so right now they're really saying the economy's strong. Biden was just out there saying it's the strongest economy ever. I mean, it's hilarious, but um, that's obviously for election for the midterms. But right afterwards, by then they're gonna probably raise interest rates another 75 or a full percentage point, and they should so they have more to cut later, and it gives them more runway to do more stimulus later once shit really starts breaking down, and it will. Corporate profits are going to collapse. There's going to be massive layoffs. So the thing about inflation is people stop shopping for everything except the basic necessities, and then layoffs come and small businesses go under. Everything that's not a necessity will start struggling really bad. And then it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as more people get laid off. And the cost of living just keeps increasing no matter what, especially if oil keeps going up, which it will, because we're in World War III. We're just in kind of like the economic part of it and the fifth generational whatever, um, you know, information and economic type. And not just that, we see plants and all kinds of things just burning down and blowing up all over the place. So that's again the supply chain. So yeah, I mean, is there temporary spurts of deflation? Yes, because the cure for high prices is higher prices, but it doesn't matter if energy just keeps going up and costing more, right? And gas keeps going up. Gas goes up. The shipping of everything goes up. Petroleum is used to package everything, ship everything. It's used in all the machinery, as lubricants, and everything is petro based. Everything that's plastic comes from oil. People don't realize that. Everything. I mean, everything runs on fossil. I hate saying fossil fuels. Fuels. It's such nonsense. Like nothing. Oil does not come from dinosaur bones. Like think about that. Like what? All right, I don't want to go off on it. It's just kind of like all the pictures they're showing us of the galaxy. It kind of looks like someone just took a picture of a pepperoni or a granite countertop. You guys, I don't want to go down that road either. It's just hilarious. It's hilarious. It's like the apocalypse and like evil is mocking us, which it is. It really is. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to go down all these separate roads. Let's just talk about the economics of everything. But you have to laugh. If you don't, you're gonna cry. I noticed that a lot of people where I live, they're all like starting the homestead. It's kind of cool. It's really cool. So there's hope. So good with all the bad comes as much good. It's kind of lagging behind. So don't be in despair. Anyone who's in despair, you're not gonna make it. You need to just man up, and you guys, everyone who listens to me, you've known this shit is coming. So I've been talking about it forever. So there's no reason you should be sad or some shit. If you're having a hard time, and I know a lot of you are because I haven't had anyone join the private group in like 6 months. So yeah, I see it in my I personally feel it as well. So you gotta just what to do. Work on trade jobs, work on becoming self-sufficient, and get as many side hustles as you can, and work hard while you can, because you gotta start taking shit seriously. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. All right, because this shit is accelerating. It really is. And there's gonna be buying opportunities. I still believe listen, commodities and energy stocks, and eventually gold and silver, they will have their day. And it'll be when the Fed does pivot and starts lowering rates and then does QE again. When is the question? It's a good question, right? Like, let's take a look at bonds. Oh, but let me finish up. I was going to talk about something that was really important. So, what was I going to talk about? Let me think for a second. What was I going to talk about? So, the market right now is rallying. And I truly believe it's because if we look at, let's look at the NASDAQ. I think it's a good bellwether type. All right. Like it clean, bounced right off the 200-week moving average. Look, the entire year, the market's been falling. And I thought it was going to be a weaker bounce. Like, it would stop around, the NASDAQ would stop around like 11,800, somewhere around there, and then just fall back down because there's really no reason for it to go up. There's absolutely no reason. Think about it this way. If the economy is doing better and jobs data is good, technically the stock market should fall. Why is that? Because that means the Fed's going to keep raising rates. If the economy is weak, the market rallied on that because then everyone's like, oh, well, they're going to stop raising rates. But then again, that means the economy is weak, we're in a recession, and earnings are going to start falling off a cliff, and these stocks are still overvalued by at least 50% for a recession. So technically, there is no reason for stocks to rally right now. So why are they rallying? I think the only reason they're rallying, okay, there could be two reasons. The first reason is the entire year the market's been falling and a lot of money's been on the sidelines. A lot of institutional money and hedge funds, they really haven't been doing anything all year. For them to meet their quotas and to get paid as money managers, right? They have to beat the market and they have to make money, like they have to do something. They can't technically sit on the sidelines all year. So they're all just buying into this FOMO rally, like, oh crap, what if this was the bottom and I can't miss out and I have to do something. I have to at least make one trade a year and this is it. Basically, this is a giant pump and then it's going to be a dump. And it's rallying right into this death cross on the weekly, okay? And markets do that all the time. They rally into death crosses, which technically it's a bull trap. And I've seen it play out so many times, even in crypto. So yeah. So maybe we're on a 6 count on the weekly on the NASDAQ. Maybe 2 to 3 more weeks of this upside, and then it's down she goes. Or it should, for whatever reason. Maybe things will pop off in the Pacific. We don't know, right? So it's weird. TA somehow lines up perfectly with global events or something. It's what I've noticed in the past decade I've been trading. So what's the other reason? The other reason is maybe some capital is coming to the U.S. out of Europe, because Europe is it's in trouble. They have just as high inflation, but on top of that, they have an enormous energy crisis, and winter is coming, right? So I'm assuming people in Europe are like exiting their equities because it just doesn't look good. On top of that, there's supply chain issues, global conflicts breaking out. Also around the sandbox conflicts is constantly breaking out there, and it's probably only going to escalate. So yeah, it does not look good for Europe. Doesn't look good for U.S. either, energy wise, because we've been dipping into our emergency SPR, and we only have a few more months of that before it like runs out. And of course it's going to run out, right? As the world as conflicts heating up internationally. Brilliant, but they don't care, right? They only care about the next election. So, and again, I told you guys what the Ruskies could do, right? and that's gonna affect your U.S. gas prices because we're no longer energy independent like we were just 2.5 years ago under Trump. So not good. I mean, it's gonna be, I believe, a brutal winter, and man, is it gonna be interesting next spring. I do believe the pivot will happen by next spring. It'll probably happen. I mean, it could happen before the year end. Even it might happen right before the holidays, the holiday season, right? Christmas and all that, because it's a big shopping season for U.S. It's I don't know how smart Powell is and what they're thinking. To what extent do they actually believe that inflation's just going to magically go away with energy prices only going up? And what are they like? I believe they're gonna, and also you don't know when something big is gonna break in the markets, and layoffs are starting already. So, and they can't pivot too soon. They have to keep raising rates. They have to at least get another percentage basis point because what if they pivot, right, and they start lowering rates and inflation is still at 8%? Like inflation could just run away. It could just it could just run to like 30% within 6 months as they lower rates. And then if they do QE, I mean, we're gonna have what, 50% Turkey, Venezuela style, like 50% inflation year over year. Do you know what happens at 50% inflation in the US with all the semis delivering all the foods and goods to everyone? Like it's like collapse style stuff. And I'm not trying to scare anyone or anything. I'm just like I guess the strategy is so on George Gammon with what's his name, the milkshake theory guy, uh, Brent Johnson. I guess that has to play out for them to be able to pivot with interest rate hikes. And how would that play out? Well, so if Powell just keeps raising rates, at least get two more rate hikes in, 1% each or 75 basis point each. The more they do that, the more the world kind of collapses around us. And they need the dollars to service their loans and debts. And it's kind of like exporting our inflation to the rest of the world as we do that, because the dollar just keeps strengthening as the rest of the world keeps printing more money just to survive and keep their populace from, the pitchforks and torches, right? Sri Lanka, that's what happened there. Why do you think all these countries around the world are falling economically? It's because the U.S. is raising interest rates. So because they're all dependent on us because we're the world reserve currency, and they took out all their loans in dollars. So temporarily, as we raise rates faster and more versus the rest of the world, we suck in capital and we strengthen our currency, and it does kind of hold back the inflation like pretty substantially. Someday all the chickens will come back home to roost, but by then, who knows what's going on globally, kinetic wise. So the only thing I see derailing it is like the tensions within the U.S. And they keep escalating that as well, which is insanity. So they're gonna raise rates at least 75 basis points, but they should do it at least two more times this year. And then that makes the dollar stronger. It will tank the stock market. Again, this is a giant bull trap, and probably cryptos. And like anything on the risk curve, right? So anyone buying like high risks cryptos like dog shit coins, and everyone buying Tesla and going back into the ARK fund, and they think it's risk on party time. Wall Street Bets is doing the AMC crap again. It's like everyone thinks it's risk on party time again, just like 2020. No, 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 no. We're not there yet. This is a giant bull trap. And they're all gonna get slaughtered because Powell has to raise rates. Like, we got to keep going because inflation's not coming down, guys. They got to get it at least back down to 6%. Ideally, at least 4%, but I don't think we'll make it down there. And that's so later they could pivot without causing hyperinflation, if that makes sense. And that'll be probably, it's hard timing this stuff. It really is. And even the last FOMC hearing after the rate decision, Powell says no more forward guidance. We're just going to go by the data, which makes it a lot less predictable as well. By the data, they mean they're looking at the inflation. But it's not like it came down a little bit, but that's why I'm saying like it's not going to fall substantially. I think because of gas prices and external factors like global economy, right? Natural gas, LNG, that's only going to go up as we get closer to winter. We're supposed to export it to Europe. Meanwhile, it's like that's making utilities go up for the U.S. as well. It's just I don't see any way out for anyone out of this. Like for at least the West. It's just fascinating how they're gonna pull off a pivot. No matter what happens, guys, when they pivot, commodities, gold, silver, energy, and cryptos, they're just gonna take off like massively. And if you're in the right ones, not the highly speculative things, you're gonna outperform everyone and you're gonna do very well. All right, let's take a look at you just gotta hold on, right? So in the short term, energy, like, well, not energy, but commodities, gold, silver could tank a little bit more. Maybe it'll revisit around low 1700s gold, and then silver may stick around 20 bucks. I don't think it's going much lower or higher. Oil, here's light oil, like crude oil futures. It might trade sideways for a little bit. Like, I'm talking a little bit, like a month, maybe 2 at the most, but it's going to come back up towards the end of the year, I believe, as we get closer towards winter. Because of geo stuff, right? So you've got a few more weeks and months to buy the dip, maybe, and then they're eventually gonna pivot. It's just, and with inflation coming down just a little bit, that's enough for them. That's like enough reason or excuse to dump commodities and metals, even though they've rallied recently. The reason they've rallied recently is because people are jumping the gun on the pivot, right, of the central banks, and that's all it is. But I do believe that margin call sell-off in equities, again, the bull trap, is going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's going to take metals and commodities and kind of everything down with it. And you just kind of want to be sitting on the sidelines in cash or have a position to benefit, like some volatility or some SQQQ, something like that. I don't outright short anything because it's too dangerous. And good example of that was this huge rise. Although I'm still shorting housing because there's no way anyone could buy homes right now. It's ridiculous, and you that bubble's popping on top of all of this, right? It's crazy. All right, let's take a look at some news a little bit. Let's just scroll through it. Oh, China. Their housing and commercial real estate is full swing. That's popping. And that is like, man, it's like 10 times, at least 10 times greater than the U.S. housing bubble in 2008, right? It's 2007-8. So when that thing pops, they are a threat and a major force to be worried about for the U.S. and everyone really. But their housing, their commercial real estate and housing is popping. So another reason why they might send all the men outside the country to go, pillage other regions because you don't want them at home when everything's falling apart and you don't even have enough women for all of them. So that's just like they've got their own issues that are just as bad as the West right now. The thing is, they have all the manufacturing and industrial capacity, which on a flip of a switch can be turned into like military complex capacity. And they did that on purpose. They're not that dumb, you know. So that's a problem. That's very scary. Meanwhile, the West is military is very feminized, not good. But another reason why you want your populace armed so when they come, they can't take it because there's guerrilla type resistance for as long as it takes. Because those people will, they're not gonna just occupy. They're gonna, they'll take care of the populace they take over. Okay. I'm reading right now. So what else is going on? Here's an article. Will Powell pivot? Don't count on it. This is what I was saying in my last video. I'm like, they're really dragging their feet. Like, they should have gone very hawkish if they ever plan on recovering the economy with more stimulus. But they dragged their feet, and now they're really stuck in a bad position, I believe. Yeah, so EVs are not the future, guys. They can't even build petroleum-based vehicles because there's not enough chips for those. Now, we are bringing back domestic, for the U.S., chip production, which is good. That's very good. There's a lot of investment opportunities there for semiconductors. Yeah, Germany's industrial capacity is getting annihilated because they're cutting them off from energy. And, well, they cut themselves off, right? They cut themselves off of nuclear and everything else. Now they turn back their coal plants. Hilarious. It's like they're back in the early 1900s. It's funny how all of the green movement and all of this shit, it's just such garbage. And I warned everyone about it. I'm like, it's not gonna work out. It's like fantasy world. It's like either these people don't know how to think anymore, or they're just scamming and they don't care. Everyone's gonna pay the price, and no one's gonna get away with the loot. There's nowhere to run in the world anymore. Because with increasingly complex societies, you can't just make mistakes like going all to wind turbine and solar. It's not even feasible. There's no energy. It's not feasible. The free market would have done it if it was feasible, but it's not. You're losing more energy by trying. Oh yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act. It's just gonna destroy the middle class more. It's everything they pass, whatever it's called, the opposite will happen. So the Inflation Reduction Act is really an inflation what's the opposite of reduction? Inflation growth act. They're spending more money, right? Just that alone, it makes no sense. They also cut taxes for the rich and the hedge funds, and but they hired. They're gonna come door to door for the poor and middle class. Yeah, good luck with that. People can't feed their families. Good luck with that. People are gonna snap. That'll do it, guys. There's nothing to fear. I mean, they're powerless. They really are. There's just hundreds of millions of Americans who've had enough. And I can see it on their faces when they're at the grocery store. They're pissed. Like, they can't fill the grocery. They can't buy food. And it doesn't seem like that when you drive around. Everyone's still got their new cars from their stimmy checks. I guarantee you a large percentage of them are defaulting on payments right about now. Oh, there's this YouTube channel. His name's Jebediah something. I like to watch his videos when he's walking around because he's on the West Coast. And I like to see what's happening over there because whatever happens on the West Coast, give it about a year or two, and that's what happens everywhere else in the U.S. And there's people who will wait like an hour in the Chick-fil-A line who could barely pay rent. They're probably late on their new car payments. And like it's just baffling what's happening on the West Coast. I have no idea how people are getting by over there. They're still building like new developments and homes in like the desert. By the way, the water's drying up. Like this is what happens when you build megatropolises in the desert. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, well, we have all these lakes and we have the Hoover Dam and all that. These are man-made lakes. The water's not even supposed to be there. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the lake's drying up now. I haven't really checked in on that, but if you look it up, do some search on it, Lake Mead, which is the Hoover Dam Lake. It's not that far off from becoming Deadpool, and that's it. Like there's no more water for California. And there's a lot of farms there, a lot of agriculture. This will affect everyone in the rest of the U.S. So the cost of food is gonna only go up. Like that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's not just like the value of your currency dropping. It's supply chains. It's droughts. It's it's global tensions. It's mismanagement of energy by the ruling class, right? It's everything just coming ahead, all right? It's foreigners buying up your farmland and people like Gates who aren't going to end up farming crickets, trust me. They're not even going to get that far. This shit is happening like it's things are happening fairly quickly. It's going to come down to communities with a home garden. So U.S. consumer price inflation slows in July. Real wages continue to tumble. Inflation has slowed, but it's very temporarily. Nothing goes up in a straight line, guys. I think it's slowed because people realize, like, oh no, we're looking at recession because we've had 2 quarters of negative GDP. What are they going to say when it's a third or a fourth quarter? Oh, it's fine, guys. Nothing to see here, right? What else? U.S. shale. We've had a shale boom in the past like decade, I would say, and I feel like we're coming towards the end of that as well. On top of everything, shale is very very energy intensive, and I don't want to go into how they pull natural gas out of the ground and oil by doing they pump water into the ground, cracking the ground, and it's very it's there's I don't see a long-term future for shale. I really don't. They have to pump water very deep underground and extract energy out from all of the crevices and whatnot. I think the future is drill deeper in the offshore. And there's still a lot of pockets left. They just have to drill deeper. And all you have to really do is wait like a decade and they fill back up. The pools underneath the ground, the reservoirs, the fossil fuel. There'll be more fossils disintegrating and turning into oil. Fucking nonsense. I'm very curious what's going to happen in Europe this winter. Amazon, the robots are mapping out your home, and then those Ring security systems are just monitoring everyone. Okay, then what are you going to do with the data? What are you going to do with it? People just have normal lives, and they're just collecting it on everyone. It's just nonsense dystopian shit. What's going to end up happening is there's not going to be power. Rolling blackouts and no computer chips, and then their Babylonian surveillance state's just going to, like, collapse. Hilarious. Oh, this is interesting. Russian planes are flying over Alaska. People don't realize how close Alaska is to Russia and China up there. That's where they could just come right across. If not fill shipping container ships that are... There's going to be a lot of empty major shipping container ships after Americans all go broke and they can't buy trinkets on Amazon from China. So what are they going to do with those ships? Fill them with invaders. And I don't want to scare you guys. Like, none of this shit has to unfold or happen. And the fact that I'm talking about it in a lighthearted way, I'm just saying what could happen. Um, what's actually more likely to happen is society globally like snaps, and everyone who thought they were all, above God and had all this power just loses it overnight, over a weekend, like literally. It it's 4 days where people can't go to the grocery store, and that's it. It's just you and your buddies in your local community against the world, and that's how quickly things happen. There is no real power there is no real power infrastructure for any country. It's really for most part a facade. So everything is a con game, meaning a confidence game. That's what everything's based off of, especially with such large populations with such complexity to maintain them. All right, guys. So I wouldn't don't. There's nothing to fear, except not being self-sufficient and prepared for hard times. During the Great Depression, there was people who didn't even know there was one. They lived out in the middle of nowhere, and they were self-sufficient. The problem is just the large populations who are not self-sufficient, but they're so stupid, right? They're like toddlers. They'll just probably sit in the urban centers and then just, I don't know. If there's no food, I don't know. Like, I don't even think they'll make it out that far. None of them are in shape, so I wouldn't worry about too much. But worry about it. So it's just, it's scary, the amount of idiocracy. And you know, what's that famous Tyson quote? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's kind of what. That's kind of how I feel about everyone who thinks they know what they're doing and managing everything. So in the end, what could just end up happening is we just go into a global depression, and that's about it. Like, nobody really stomachs or wants to fight for anything, because at the end of the day, it really is nonsense. So we have that to look forward to. In the meantime, though, we're gonna do great with commodity stocks, energy stocks, um, our cryptos, right? And that's about it. I mean, you got nothing. What else are you gonna do? They're gonna do great. And there's always the doomy, gloomy guy who's like, "Oh, everything will come, line. Everything will go offline." All right, well, it's gonna come back someday, and when it does, I'm gonna have all the wealth. So when it does come back online, and it will, you'll be fine. But I don't. We're not there yet. I still think we got I still think the U.S. could coast, and we got a few more years, because I truly believe that things are escalating, but it is somewhat managed. Even they are not that crazy, or I hope not. Although things are, you know, it just seems like with domestic issues, like for the West, like politically, things are heating up, obviously, and but that's all for par for the course, right? With the fourth turning, there'll be more balkanization, and the power will is actually transferring from centralization to more decentralized, if you're paying attention, and that's happening globally. And the more they attack the decentralized, the more decentralized it gets. A good example of that is in crypto. You can do things where you get more anonymity, and that just came under attack. And at first I'm like, oh, I knew they were gonna do this, but guess what? It just hardened it, and you can make thousands of forks of it, and then it's completely uncontrollable, and it's unmanageable. Like, the more they try to take away freedom from the people, the more hardened they become, and the more freedom will become of it. So it's kind of like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That shit is happening right now. And yes, it's going to be painful and frustrating and scary at times. but just be a part of it, and support it, because we're gonna win. We're already winning. It's just we're going through the motions as the snake eats itself. As the nonsense boomer psychopaths take this corrupt system and try to use it to gain more global central authority, the more they actually destroy it. That's what I'm trying to say. So I want to leave on that bombshell, on that positive note. All right, guys. So I'll see you guys next time. Leave something in the comment section. Share my channel. Join my private group. It's worth it. We are planning. I mean, we're setting ourselves up for the next bull market. And it's going to be next bull market, I'm going to be flexing, guys. And you're going to be like, oh, shit, I should have joined during the bear market, but I was too scared or whatever. I don't know what goes through your head. Now's the time. This is when you set yourself up. Millionaires are made in bear markets, not during the bull market. You're too late then, right? Or not too late, but you're not going to see the exponential gains and rewards. So now's the time. Till next time.